My husband begged, "Please, don't come to my brother's wedding." "Why?" I asked. He sighed. "I don't want people to know you're just a hairstylist." He added coldly, "I'll say goodbye." He left in tears. On the wedding day, my ex-husband, his brother, and their relatives wouldn't stop calling. Their celebrity bride had backed out, and they begged me to step in as the replacement. "Please don't come to my brother's wedding." Timothy's voice cracked as he stood in our bedroom doorway, suitcase in hand. "Why?" The scissors I'd been polishing clattered to the floor. "After 3 years of marriage, I thought we'd moved past this." Timothy sighed, his shoulders slumping beneath his expensive suit jacket. "I don't want people to know you're just a hairstylist." The word "just" sliced through me like my sharpest shears through hair. As if my passion, my art, my livelihood was something shameful. "I'll say goodbye," he added coldly, not meeting my eyes. I stood frozen, watching as he walked out our front door, tears streaming down his face. But not for me. For his reputation, for his family's standing, for the embarrassment he felt being married to someone who worked with her hands instead of a spreadsheet. That moment shattered everything I thought I knew about our marriage, about Timothy Brooks, and about the life I'd built trying to fit into his world while holding on to my own. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you. If you've ever felt undervalued or dismissed for your passion, this story might resonate with you. Follow Victoria's journey as she stands up for her worth in a world that tries to diminish it. Subscribe to join our community of readers who appreciate stories of authenticity and empowerment. It's completely free and ensures you never miss our next compelling narrative of resilience and self-respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. We'd met 3 years earlier at a charity event where I was volunteering, styling hair for cancer survivors preparing for a confidence-building photo shoot. I was arranging my styling station when Timothy approached, his confident stride and warm smile immediately drawing my attention. "That's incredible what you're doing," he said, watching as I transformed a woman's thinning hair into a style that made her beam with newfound confidence. "You're giving them back something they thought they'd lost." I looked up, brush in hand, to find myself staring into the kindest brown eyes I'd ever seen. "Everyone deserves to feel beautiful," I answered simply. We talked for hours after the event ended. Timothy told me about his family's construction business, and I shared stories about my salon in downtown Portland. The small space had been my mother's before she passed, leaving it to me along with her passion for transforming more than just hair, but people's sense of self. "Victoria," he'd said my name like it was something precious, "the way you talk about hair, it's like a sculptor discussing marble or a painter talking about canvas." Our backgrounds couldn't have been more different. Timothy grew up in country clubs and private schools, while I was raised in an apartment above our salon, falling asleep to the hum of hair dryers. Yet that night, those differences seemed insignificant against the connection we felt. Our romance was a whirlwind. Timothy would stop by the salon with coffee, watching with fascination as I worked. He called my hands "artist hands," and bragged to his friends about my eye for detail. When he proposed 6 months later, I believed I'd found someone who valued me completely, profession and all. The first sign that something was amiss came during dinner with his family. The Brooks residence was intimidating. All high ceilings and artwork that cost more than my yearly salon income. His mother Eleanor sat at the head of the table, pearl necklace gleaming under the chandelier light. "And what is it you do again, Victoria?" she asked, though Timothy had already told her twice. "I own Transformations. It's a hair salon downtown." "Oh. Pause. How quaint. I suppose someone needs to do those sorts of jobs." Timothy squeezed my hand under the table but said nothing to defend me. "Will you be hiring managers soon?" his father asked. "Timothy mentioned you're quite the entrepreneur." I blinked in confusion. "I'm not looking to expand right now. I enjoy working with clients directly. The hands-on creative work is why I love my profession." The table fell silent. Eleanor exchanged a look with her husband that made my stomach knot. Later that night, Timothy suggested that perhaps I should consider being less explicit about cutting hair myself. "People in my family's circle respect business owners, Victoria. Maybe emphasize the ownership part more than the styling part." I dismissed it then as a one-time concession. Little did I know it was the beginning of Timothy's campaign to reshape me into someone his family could showcase at their social gatherings. Despite the warning signs, I married Timothy in a ceremony that cost more than my salon's annual revenue. My co-workers and clients, people who were like family to me, were seated in the back rows, while Timothy's business associates and family friends filled the front of the church. During the reception, I excused myself to use the restroom and overheard Timothy's voice around the corner, speaking to his college roommate. No, Victoria's working on getting into management. The hands-on stuff is just temporary. She's got bigger plans. I stood there, beautiful in my designer wedding dress, feeling like a fraud. He was already ashamed of me, already lying about who I was and what I loved. But I'd walked down the aisle, said my vows, and convinced myself that love would bridge our differences. For 3 years, I tried to be both the woman Timothy wanted to show off and the hairstylist who found joy in transforming clients. I maintained my salon schedule while attending his business dinners. I wore the right clothes, learned which forks to use, and smiled through conversations about stocks and vacation properties. All while Timothy gradually stopped visiting my salon, stopped introducing me to new acquaintances with pride, stopped seeing me as the woman he'd fallen for at that charity event. Until today. Until, please don't come to my brother's wedding, and you're just a hairstylist, and the sound of our front door closing behind him. I didn't know then that in 3 days my phone would be ringing non-stop. That Timothy, his brother, and their relatives would be begging me to step in when their celebrity bride backed out. That my hands, my just a hairstylist hands, would hold the power to salvage or destroy the event they deemed too important for someone like me to attend. But for now, I sat alone in our house, surrounded by the life we'd built together, realizing it had been constructed on a foundation as fragile as glass. And like a shattered glass slipper, no amount of forcing would make it fit again. The morning after Timothy left, I wandered through our empty house, a colonial revival in the Westmoreland district that his parents had helped us purchase. The neighbors' houses stood equally tall and pristine, occupied by doctors, lawyers, and business executives. People whose professions didn't involve hair clippings on their shoes or styling product residue under their fingernails. I remembered the housewarming party we'd thrown 6 months after moving in. A neighbor, Diane Kensington, champagne flute in hand, had cornered me by the canapes. Timothy mentioned you work downtown. Which firm are you with? Her diamond tennis bracelet caught the light as she gestured. Before I could answer, Timothy appeared at my side, his hand pressing firmly against my lower back. Victoria's in the beauty industry. She's quite talented at management. Not a lie, but not the truth either. I noticed how he'd steered the conversation away from my hands-on work, my actual passion. That night, after everyone left, I confronted him. You made it sound like I sit behind a desk all day. I just simplified, he said, loosening his tie. They wouldn't understand what you do anyway. What's to understand? I'm a hairstylist. I own a salon. I'm proud of that. He sighed, that familiar crease forming between his eyebrows. Victoria, in this neighborhood, people expect a certain trajectory. No one here works with their hands unless it involves a scalpel. I maintained my salon schedule despite our move, despite Timothy's hints that perhaps I could afford to step back now. I refused to give up the thing that made me feel alive. The transformation that occurred when a client sat in my chair feeling one way and stood up feeling completely different. The power of that change was addictive, magical in ways Timothy's world of profit margins and business lunches could never be. 3 months after moving in, I purchased new equipment for the salon, state-of-the-art chairs, better lighting, the ceramic straighteners my staff had been begging for. When Timothy saw the credit card statement, his face tightened. You spent how much? On what? Investments for my business, I replied, chopping vegetables for dinner with practiced precision. The chairs alone will pay for themselves in client comfort and retention. You could have discussed this with me first. Do you discuss every business expense with me? I pointed the knife toward him, not threatening but making a point. The salon is profitable, Timothy. This isn't frivolous spending. It's just. He ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair I'd cut and maintained. We have a certain lifestyle to maintain now. Certain appearances. The word, appearances, became a recurring theme in our marriage. Everything was about how things looked, not how they were. Timothy started working later, attending more business dinners without me. I suspected he'd grown tired of explaining away my profession, of watching me interact with the wives of his colleagues with my unmistakable salon owner mannerisms, noticing their haircuts, sometimes offering advice. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Timothy burst through the front door on a Thursday evening, flushed with excitement. "Michael proposed to Rachel Miller," he announced, tossing his briefcase onto the couch. She said yes. I recognized the name immediately. Rachel Miller was the rising star of a popular legal drama, her face appearing on billboards and magazine covers. I'd admired her hairstyles in several red carpet appearances. "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for Michael, who had always been kinder to me than the rest of Timothy's family. "When's the wedding?" 3 months. They're fast-tracking everything to fit her shooting schedule. His eyes gleamed with an intensity one hadn't seen directed at me in months. "Can you believe it? A Miller marrying into the Brooks family." Mom's ecstatic. Over the following weeks, the Miller-Brooks wedding consumed all family conversations. Sunday brunches at Eleanor's became wedding planning sessions, with discussions about press coverage, exclusive magazine deals, and which society photographers to hire. "Rachel's people insist on controlling the narrative," Eleanor said one Sunday, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. "But the exposure for the family business will be incredible." I sat quietly, wondering when a celebration of love had transformed into a business opportunity. Michael looked uncomfortable too, I noticed. When Rachel called during brunch, he excused himself to take it, returning with a soft smile that reminded me of how Timothy used to look at me. As the wedding drew closer, Timothy's criticisms of my work grew more pointed. No longer veiled suggestions, they became demands. "Can't you at least take a sabbatical?" he asked one night as we lay in bed, backs facing each other. "Just until after the wedding." "Why would I do that?" "Rachel's friends include producers, directors. People who could help us." "Help us what, Timothy?" "I have a career I love." "A real career, Victoria." He sat up, voice rising. "Something befitting a Brooks. Not playing with hair all day like a teenager." The silence that followed was deafening. In the darkness, I felt the final thread connecting us snap. "Is that what you think I do?" My voice was deadly calm. "Play. You know what I mean. I transform people. I make them feel confident, beautiful." "What exactly do you do, Timothy? Besides worry about what other people think?" The arguments escalated after that night. Timothy started sleeping in the guest room. When we spoke, it was in clipped, cold sentences about household logistics. The man who had once watched me work with admiration now couldn't look at me without disappointment clouding his eyes. 1 week before Michael's wedding, I received an invitation to style hair for a major fashion magazine spread. I'd been recommended by a client who worked in publishing, an opportunity that could elevate my salon's profile significantly. The shoot coincided with the wedding weekend. I didn't hesitate to accept. When I told Timothy, his face contorted in disbelief. "You're choosing a haircut over my brother's wedding?" "I wasn't aware I had been invited," I replied, the bitterness I'd been swallowing for months finally seeping into my words. What followed was the fight that ended everything. Harsh words thrown like daggers, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Timothy accused me of embarrassing him, of refusing to evolve beyond my little hobby. I accused him of marrying who he thought I could become rather than who I was. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of suitcases being zipped. Timothy stood in our bedroom doorway, dressed impeccably as always, eyes red-rimmed. "Please don't come to my brother's wedding," he said flatly. "Why?" I asked, though I knew the answer. He sighed, tension visible in every line of his body. "I don't want people to know you're just a hairstylist." The word "just" hung between us, weighted with all the disappointment and shame he'd accumulated over our marriage. "I'll say goodbye," he added coldly, not meeting my eyes. Then he was gone, the door closing quietly behind him, his tears the final punctuation on our failed marriage. Tears not of love lost but of reputation threatened. I sat in the aftermath, scissors in hand, realizing I'd spent 3 years trying to cut away parts of myself to fit Timothy's vision, when all along I should have been trimming away his expectations instead. For 5 days after Timothy walked out, I moved through our house like a ghost. I canceled my appointments at the salon, telling my assistant manager Zoe to handle things. I couldn't bear to transform others when I felt so utterly broken myself. On the 6th day, I woke up with a strange clarity. I looked at my reflection, hair unwashed, eyes hollow, and suddenly felt disgusted. Not with my profession but with how I'd allowed someone else to make me feel ashamed of it. I showered, dressed, and drove to my salon. The familiar scent of shampoo and styling products washed over me as I pushed open the door. Zoe looked up, surprise crossing her features. Boss, we weren't expecting you until next week. I grabbed my apron, tying it around my waist with practiced movements. I need to work. That day I channeled every emotion into my craft. Each snip of my scissors felt like cutting away Timothy's influence. Every client who left my chair smiling reminded me of why I loved what I did. By closing time, the weight on my chest had lightened marginally. The next morning, 2 days before Michael's wedding, my phone rang at 6:17 a.m. Eleanor Brooks' name flashed on the screen. I nearly declined the call, but curiosity got the better of me. Victoria. Her voice was higher than usual, tight with barely controlled panic. I need to speak with you. I'm listening. I kept my tone neutral, sitting up in bed. It's about the wedding. Rachel's hairstylist canceled last night. Food poisoning or some nonsense. The replacement they found this morning was catastrophic. I bit back a laugh. That sounds unfortunate. It's a disaster. Eleanor's composure cracked. Her hair looks dreadful, and the photographer for the rehearsal dinner is arriving in hours. Rachel is hysterical. The satisfaction warming my chest was petty but undeniable. What does this have to do with me, Eleanor? Pause. We need you. Your skills. The word sounded as if it physically pained her to say it. My skills as what, exactly? A hairstylist. I emphasized the last word. Another pause. Yes. I thought my profession was an embarrassment to the family. Victoria, please. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This wedding is important to all of us. I'm asking for your help. I have a booking for a magazine shoot that day. A career opportunity. The lie slipped out easily. We'll compensate you, of course. Whatever your rate is, plus a consideration for the inconvenience. I'll think about it, I said, ending the call before she could respond. I was making coffee when my phone dinged with a voicemail notification. Michael's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated before playing it. Victoria, it's Michael. I know things are horrible between you and Tim right now, and I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. Rachel's threatening to call off the wedding because her hair looks like, her words, a bird's nest that would terrify viewers on national television. None of the stylists we've called can fix it. Please, if you could find it in your heart to help us, I'd be eternally grateful. I know my brother has been an idiot, but this isn't about him. It's about Rachel, and honestly, I love her too much to let hair ruin our day. His sincerity gave me pause. Michael had always been kind to me, defending me subtly when Eleanor made her cutting remarks. Unlike Timothy, he seemed to genuinely love Rachel for who she was, not what she represented. The final call came at noon. Timothy's name flashed on my screen, sending my heart into an unwelcome flutter. I answered without speaking. Victoria. His voice sounded rough, as if he hadn't slept. Are you there? I'm here. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. He swallowed audibly. But Michael is falling apart. Rachel's hair is, it's beyond salvaging by normal standards. Normal standards? I couldn't help the edge in my voice. That came out wrong. He exhaled sharply. What I meant was, someone with extraordinary talent is needed. Someone like you. The compliment felt hollow after everything. Why should I help you, Timothy? You made it abundantly clear how you feel about my profession. I was wrong. His voice cracked. I've been wrong about so many things. Please, Victoria. I'm begging you. Silence stretched between us. The ceremony is tomorrow at 4, he finally said. Rachel's at the Fairmont Hotel with the bridal party. Room 718. I said nothing but didn't hang up. There's one more thing you should know, he added, hesitation evident in his voice. My parents. They told everyone you're an interior designer. 4 high-end clients in Portland. The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, yet it still stung. An interior designer? They thought it sounded more compatible with the family image. A bitter laugh escaped me. So your family is finally desperate enough to acknowledge what I actually do, but only in private. How fitting. Victoria. Goodbye, Timothy. After hanging up, I sat motionless at my kitchen island, tracing the granite patterns with my fingertip. The petty part of me wanted to ignore their pleas, to let them suffer the consequences of their snobbery. But another part, the professional who took pride in her craft, couldn't bear the thought of anyone walking down the aisle feeling less than confident. Not for Timothy. Not even for Michael. But for Rachel, who was caught in the crossfire of family politics on what should be her happiest day. I called Zoe. I need you to bring my emergency kit to the salon. The leather case with the Japanese scissors and the special products in the locked cabinet. I've got a situation. An hour later, I stood before my closet, selecting an outfit that would be appropriate for a high-society wedding venue but practical enough to work in. I chose a sleek black dress with a high neckline and cap sleeves, elegant yet understated. Professional. As I packed my tools, each one sliding into its designated pocket in my leather case, I felt a curious sense of power. For once, the Brooks family needed me. Not the version of me they wanted to present to society, but the real me with my just a hairstylist hands and my embarrassing profession. I glanced at my reflection one last time before leaving. Back straight, chin up, expression composed. No one would guess I was walking into the lion's den with nothing but scissors as my weapon. The drive to the Fairmont took 30 minutes. As I pulled into the circular driveway, a valet approached. "I'm here for the Miller Brooks wedding party," I said, handing him my keys. "Room 718. My styling case felt heavy in my hand as I crossed the opulent lobby, rode the elevator to the 7th floor, and walked down the carpeted hallway. Outside room 718 I paused, drawing a deep breath. Then I knocked, ready to face whatever chaos awaited on the other side. And perhaps, to reclaim something of myself in the process. The door swung open before my knuckles could connect a second time. Eleanor stood there, her usually perfect appearance noticeably disheveled. Mascara slightly smudged, hair coming loose from its chignon. "Thank God," she whispered, pulling me inside with unexpected force. The suite was chaos incarnate. Garment bags were strewn across furniture. Makeup palettes lay open on every surface, and the sharp scent of hairspray hung thick in the air. In the center of the storm sat Rachel Miller on a vanity chair, wrapped in a silk robe, her face buried in her hands. Timothy stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his back to the room. When he turned and saw me, the relief in his eyes quickly gave way to something else. Shame, perhaps, or regret. He mumbled something into the phone and hung up, unable to meet my gaze. "Victoria's here," Eleanor announced, her voice recovering its usual commanding tone. Rachel looked up, her red-rimmed eyes widening slightly. Even in distress, I could see why she was captivating on screen. Striking features, expressive eyes, a presence that demanded attention. Her hair, however, was indeed a catastrophe. Uneven layers chopped with no understanding of her face shape. Color unevenly applied, creating a brassy, patchy effect, and texture that couldn't decide if it wanted to be curly or straight. "You're the hairstylist?" Rachel asked, eyeing me with naked desperation. "I am," I replied, setting my case on the nearby console table. I met her gaze directly. "I'm Victoria. Timothy's?" Her voice trailed off, clearly uncertain how to label me given the circumstances. "Wife," I supplied simply. No need to complicate matters with impending divorce discussions. "Hey, I gestured toward her hair. She nodded, straightening in the chair. The salon sent someone they claimed was their best. Clearly, their standards are subterranean. I circled her slowly, assessing the damage from all angles. The situation was bad but not irredeemable. I'd fixed worse catastrophes before major events. "I can work with this," I said, opening my case with practiced precision. The leather unfolded to reveal my tools, arranged by function, each in its designated pocket. I noticed Eleanor watching with barely concealed surprise as I laid out professional-grade scissors, combs, clips, and products with surgical efficiency. "Tell me what you were hoping for," I asked Rachel, meeting her eyes in the mirror as I gently ran my fingers through her damaged hair, mentally cataloging texture, density, and problem areas. "I wanted something elegant but natural. Not trying too hard, you know. I hate those overdone celebrity wedding looks," she explained, her hands moving expressively. "Michael loves my hair when it's simple." I nodded, already formulating a plan. "I can create something that honors your natural texture but elevates it for the occasion. I'll need about 90 minutes. "We don't have," Eleanor began. 90 minutes or she walks down the aisle like this," I interrupted calmly, not looking away from Rachel's reflection. "Your choice." Eleanor fell silent. From the corner of my eye, I saw Timothy shift uncomfortably. Do what you need to do, Rachel said decisively. Everyone else out. Except. She hesitated. Would you mind staying, Victoria? Just you. I need some peace. The look on Eleanor's face was priceless. A mixture of indignation and disbelief. Timothy appeared ready to protest but caught himself. Within moments they filed out, the door closing behind them with a soft click. As I began working, first wetting her hair to assess the true damage, then applying a treatment to restore moisture and shine, Rachel visibly relaxed. Thank you, she said softly. Not just for the hair, but for the rescue from family suffocation. I smiled despite myself. Happy to help with both. As my hands worked, we fell into conversation. Rachel was surprisingly easy to talk to, unpretentious and forthright in a way that seemed at odds with her celebrity status. So you're the mysterious wife, she said, watching me work in the mirror. Michael speaks highly of you, but the rest of them change the subject whenever your name comes up. I imagine they do. I sectioned off portions of her hair with clips. What did they tell you I do for a living? Interior design for elite clients, she laughed. Which seemed odd since no one would show me your portfolio when I asked. Because it doesn't exist. I met her eyes in the mirror. I'm a hairstylist. I own a salon downtown. That's my entire career and my passion. And they're ashamed of that? She shook her head slightly, careful not to disrupt my work. That tracks with the Brooks family vibe I've been getting. As I continued transforming her hair, cutting strategic layers to create movement, toning to neutralize the brassiness, applying products to enhance her natural wave pattern, Rachel shared her own story. She'd grown up in a Pennsylvania steel town, daughter of a factory worker and a waitress. Her path to acting had been paved with waitressing jobs, rejections, and tiny apartments shared with too many roommates. People see me now and assume I was born into this world, she said. They don't see the decade of struggle before the overnight success. I understood completely. Success that comes too easily isn't appreciated. Exactly. She nodded emphatically. That's what Michael and I connect on. He may come from money, but he's building his architecture firm from scratch, refusing his father's connections. He wants to earn his way. This surprised me. In our few interactions, Michael had seemed different from the rest of the family, but I hadn't realized the extent of his independence. As I put the finishing touches on Rachel's hair, a softly structured updo with loose tendrils framing her face, secure enough to last through the ceremony but natural enough to look effortless, the door opened. Eleanor peeked in, followed by two bridesmaids who gasped audibly. Rachel, we need to. Eleanor's words died as she took in the transformation. Oh my. Rachel stood, turning to examine her hair from different angles. The smile that spread across her face was genuine and joyful. Victoria, it's perfect. Exactly what I wanted. She reached for my hands, squeezing them. Thank you. More people filtered into the suite. The makeup artist, the photographer, the wedding planner, all staring with unconcealed admiration at Rachel's hair. I began packing my tools, satisfied with my work and ready to make a quiet exit. Eleanor approached as I closed my case. I don't know how you did it, but thank you. Her words were genuine, but her expression remained guarded, as if complimenting a hairstylist physically pained her. I merely nodded, snapping my case shut. As I headed for the door, Timothy intercepted me in the hallway. He looked tired, the confident businessman facade cracked to reveal something more vulnerable. Victoria, wait. His hand reached for mine but stopped short. What you did in there was incredible. I've never seen Rachel so happy. I did my job, I replied evenly. The job you're ashamed of. He winced. I was wrong. So wrong. I see that now. His voice dropped lower. Maybe we could talk? After the ceremony? I think we could work things out now that I understand. Understand what, Timothy? My voice remained calm. How valuable your skills are. The connections you could make in these circles. Rachel's friends are all industry people who need someone they can trust with their image. And there was. Not an apology for dismissing my passion, but a recognition of how it could serve his ambitions now that he saw its value in his world. You still don't get it, I said softly. This isn't about connections or status. It's about respect for what I love doing. I stepped around him, my case in hand, feeling strangely unburdened. In trying to rescue this wedding, I'd somehow rescued myself instead. I slipped into the back row of the church just as the string quartet began playing the processional music. The historic chapel was decorated with tasteful floral arrangements, the afternoon sunlight streaming through stained glass windows casting jewel-toned patterns across the guests' expectant faces. No one noticed me. I was simply another well-dressed attendee, not the woman who had salvaged the day with mere scissors and expertise. The ceremony proceeded with picture-perfect precision. Michael stood tall at the altar, his face transforming with joy when Rachel appeared in the doorway. Her gown was elegant, simple lines that highlighted her natural beauty. And her hair, my creation, caught the light as she moved, the soft tendrils framing her face moving naturally with each step. From my vantage point I could see the Brooks family in the front row. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, while her husband sat stiffly proud. Timothy was serving as best man, his posture perfect in his tailored suit as he handed over the rings when prompted. Not once during the exchange of vows did I feel regret for helping. Whatever my feelings toward the family, this moment wasn't about them. It was about Rachel and Michael, who squeezed each other's hands as they recited promises that I hoped would prove more durable than mine had been. After the ceremony, I lingered in the church garden, reluctant to join the reception but not quite ready to leave. The scent of roses and fresh-cut grass filled the air as guests streamed toward the adjacent reception hall. Victoria. Michael's voice came from behind me. He stood there in his wedding suit, looking happy but slightly disheveled, his tie already loosened at the neck. Shouldn't you be taking photos or greeting guests? I asked, surprised to see him alone. They can wait 5 minutes. He approached, hands in his pockets. Rachel told me what you did. How you stepped in when we didn't deserve your help. I shrugged. Professional pride. I couldn't let anyone walk down the aisle with hair like that, even if I wanted to. Michael laughed, then grew serious. It was more than that, and we both know it. He gestured to a nearby bench and we sat. I want to apologize for my family. For how they've treated you. For how Timothy. He trailed off. You don't need to apologize for your brother, I said. Maybe not, but I understand him better than most. Michael stared at his polished shoes. There's something about growing up in the Brooks family that warps your perspective. Everything becomes about appearances, connections, the right schools, the right professions. I listened as Michael spoke candidly about the pressure he'd felt growing up, the constant measuring against family expectations, the subtle and not-so-subtle ways their parents had shaped their worldview. It took me leaving, actually moving across the country for college, to realize how toxic it all was, he confessed. Timothy never got that distance. He went straight from our father's approved university to the family business. That doesn't excuse how he treated me, I said quietly. No, it doesn't. Michael met my eyes directly. Nothing excuses that. But I want you to know that not everyone in this family shares those values. Rachel and I certainly don't. As we walked together toward the reception, Michael asked a question that caught me off guard. What are you going to do now? About you and Timothy? I don't know yet, I answered truthfully. But I know I won't shrink myself anymore to fit someone else's idea of success. The reception was in full swing when we entered. A live band playing as couples danced on the polished floor. I found a seat at a table near the edge of the room, content to observe from a distance. Within minutes, however, I was approached by a woman with a sharp bob and impressive jewelry. Excuse me, she said, extending her hand. I'm Diane Wilson, Rachel's manager. I've been admiring her hair all day. It's absolute perfection for the photos. Who did it? Before I could answer, a second woman joined us. The updo is divine. Are you the stylist? Please tell me you work in Los Angeles. Word spread quickly. Over the next hour, I was approached by various guests, actresses, producers, photographers, all inquiring about my services. I handed out the business cards I'd tucked into my clutch, explaining my Portland salon but mentioning I occasionally traveled for special clients. From across the room, I caught Timothy watching these interactions, his expression a mix of surprise and calculation. When he finally approached, champagne flutes in hand, his smile was the one he reserved for business associates he wanted to impress. Seems like you're the hit of the reception, he said, offering me a glass. I accepted the champagne but didn't drink. Just networking with potential clients. I've been thinking, he began, lowering his voice confidentially. About what I said earlier. We really should talk about our situation. Seeing you work today, watching all these industry people respond to your talent. I realize now there's real potential here. Potential. I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. For both of us, Timothy continued, oblivious to my tone. Your skill, my business connections. We could rethink the salon, maybe expand to cater exclusively to a higher-end clientele. Perhaps rebrand as a hair atelier, instead of a salon. His words confirmed everything. Even now he couldn't simply value what I did, he needed to repackage it, elevate it, make it palatable to his social circle. I placed the untouched champagne on a passing server's tray. No thank you, Timothy, I said calmly. I'm not interested in rebranding my passion to make it acceptable to you. I moved away before he could respond, making my way toward the exit. Eleanor intercepted me near the door, a small envelope in her perfectly manicured hands. Victoria, dear, she said, her voice honeyed in a way it had never been before. We cannot thank you enough for your assistance today. The family would like to show our appreciation. She extended the envelope. I didn't need to open it to know it contained a check, payment for services rendered, with perhaps a premium for the embarrassment of having to acknowledge my profession. I don't want your money, Eleanor. Her smile faltered. But surely you should be compensated for your time and expertise. What I want is much simpler, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. Acknowledgement that there's dignity in all honest work, including styling hair. That what matters isn't the prestige of a career but the passion and skill one brings to it. Eleanor blinked rapidly, clearly unprepared for this response. I don't understand what you... You don't have to understand, I interrupted gently. Just consider it. For Michael and Rachel's sake, if nothing else. I walked out into the evening air, the weight of 3 years of compromises lifting with each step away from the reception. Tomorrow I would call a lawyer about divorce proceedings. The day after, I'd meet with my salon staff about expanding our editorial work. The magazine shoot that had previously conflicted with the wedding had expressed interest in rescheduling. As I reached my car, my phone chimed with a text message. It was from Rachel. Leaving early? Don't blame you. Thanks again for everything. When you're ready to style for my next premiere, call me directly. No Brooks family interference required. I smiled, tucking the phone away. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years I felt true to myself. I had walked into that hotel with just my skills and my scissors, but I was leaving with something far more valuable. The certainty that I would never again diminish myself to satisfy someone else's expectations. My hands, my talented, capable, artistic hands, gripped the steering wheel as I drove away from the Brooks family and toward a future where I was valued for exactly who I was, not despite it.